Oregon spring game is this Saturday, and one of the most interesting players to watch is Dante Moore. Here we go.
You are Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Oregon Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, it is that time once again for Locked On Ducks. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view of the day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and your number one source to stay up to date with the Ducks. If you have not already, please like, comment, subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to or watch this show, which today is brought to you by our friends over at LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions do apply. We'll talk about some underclassmen, not necessarily freshmen, that have to step up for the Ducks this year, and another perfect men's basketball transfer target emerges. A familiar name, perhaps, all coming up on today's show. But we start with Dante Moore, who was once verbally committed to Oregon, flips to UCLA after Dillingham went to ASU. Doesn't work out the way he was hoping for. Chip Kelly left UCLA anyway, so probably best for Dante Moore that he did not stick around to be the quarterback of the Bruins. And now he's back with the Ducks. And he and everyone else taking the field. I actually can't believe we're here the week of the spring game. Drop all your questions to me if you have any for the upcoming. We're going to see Oregon play something kind of sort of resembling a football game. And I'm really intrigued to see Dante Moore because I want to see how he looks in this offense. The whole reason that I am optimistic about what Dante Moore can do with Oregon, or at Oregon, I should say, is because of what he's going to have to work with. Now, I don't know exactly how they're going to mix up the teams. I think it'll be a little bit like last year where you have starters on both sides and backups on both sides. I like that the best personally, and then you rotate the quarterbacks around and such. Moore might be throwing to receivers on Saturday that he won't have on the field in 2025 since Oregon is going to lose its top four wideouts and Terrence Ferguson after this year. But there's still plenty of talent there. As we know, the recruiting classes are well stocked. But I want to see Dante Moore in Will Stein's offense because Will Stein has a proven track record of bringing to the table a quarterback-friendly offense. You look at what Frank Harris did at UTSA. You look at Bo Nix last year. We'll see what Dylan Gabriel's going to do. And by the way, this is not a I don't care about seeing Dylan Gabriel segment. It's just that Dante Moore is so intriguing because his physical traits, his ability at the quarterback position, it's all immense. He was not the number one quarterback in the 2023 class by accident. He has got plenty of talent, but why didn't it go well at UCLA last year? I think it was twofold. Number one, he was playing before he was ready. That much was plainly obvious. He was not prepared to see the college game at the speed at which it was moving. It was way too quick for him. He couldn't process things quickly. He made bad decisions. He turned the ball over too much. And this is not to say Chip Kelly is not a good offensive mind, but that system clearly didn't click, right? Trying to run it right away. And he emerges the best option there at UCLA ahead of Ethan Garbers, who's fine. Like he's nothing special. He's decent, solid, fine. Like he's just a guy. Ethan Garbers is just a guy. And so when Dante Moore showed glimpses of his five-star potential, they went with him as a starter. That was clearly not the right move. So him coming to Oregon is such a great career trajectory for him, and I'm just interested to see how he looks, right? How is he able to read the defense? What's his pocket presence look like? How does he make reads? How does he execute, certain plays that Stein likes to run that might suit him better than maybe what Chip Kelly wanted him to do? I think that he is someone who can really thrive from the pocket. And when you look at what Bo Nix did last year for the Ducks offensively, it wasn't an offense that was predicated on moving the quarterback around a ton, though certainly he can move at least a little bit there. So I'm really, really interested to see what he looks like and how the game really looks to him, and how he's able to execute the offense. And remember as well, if, God forbid, anything happens to Dylan Gabriel, Dante Moore is going to be that guy that steps in and has to, play a half or play a quarter or play a drive or just a couple plays or something of that nature. And he's got to be able to execute. So I think he is one of the more intriguing watches as the spring game looms, and someone who I'm really, really excited to see. Now, I am also excited to see Dillon Gabriel because, I watched him a decent amount at Oklahoma, but what does he look? I mean, literally, what does he look like in an Oregon uniform? I say that mostly because he's left-handed. It's going to be strange. It's going to be weird. Let's just call a spade a spade. It's going to be strange seeing a left-handed Oregon quarterback. I have not seen one in my life. I don't even know if there's even been a backup in my lifetime as an Oregon fan that is a left-handed quarterback. But all the reports and everything that has come out of spring practice is that Dillon Gabriel is as advertised, that he is just really impressive as a leader, as a clubhouse. Clubhouse is a baseball term. I'm in baseball season. It just, anyway. So as a locker room guy, but also that he has been doing well offensively, and I very much look forward to seeing that. Another thing that really catches my eye is, wow, this could be fun to watch at the spring game on Saturday, are the sorts of matchups between this Oregon secondary and the receiving corps. And I think we're going to get a really good idea about what the defensive back room really could look like from a depth chart standpoint, because we know that this receiving corps is one of the best in college football. It is, by my count, top 5 at the very least. There was a college football report account tweet flying around or something like that said Oregon had the best receiving corps in all of college football. I don't know, that's a really, really high bar. Certainly if you have Evan Stewart and you untap his potential to its fullest extent, yeah, you could have the best receiving corps in all of college football, but Oregon certainly has one of them. But with all the questions that I've talked about in the last couple months on the show in the secondary, I think we're going to get a good idea of, okay, who looks good, right? If Jaleel Florence is not there because of injury, what does Cam Alexander look like? And if he's in a one-on-one with Tez Johnson, for instance, well, we're going to have an idea of what he looks like. And guys have stood out in that sort of position before. You think about a couple of years ago, Jaleel Florence, I thought had a nice spring game, ended up playing as a true freshman. Cole Martin last year as a true freshman was, putting the clamps down on Chris Hudson, and I and many others got excited about it. He's now at Arizona State. Them's the breaks. That's the way of the transfer portal nowadays. But I think that's the other thing to look at with this spring game coming up on Saturday is so many questions in the cornerback room outside of Jabbar Muhammad. That's CB1, always going to be on the field. Who else can stand up? I don't know. But they're going to be tested because Oregon's receiving corps is just so good. And it is spring game week. There's going to be something resembling to the best that we can ask for an Oregon football game later this week. What a time to be alive. Isn't it great? I could not agree more. And I very much look forward to watching it. Drop your thoughts in the YouTube comments or hit me up on X, formerly known as Twitter. Underclassmen have a progression I think we're all aware of. Which one take big leaps forward this fall? First, let's talk about our friends over at LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. That's why 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Alrighty, so mailbag always open. YouTube comments or hit me up on X at @McLaughlinCFB or at LockedOnDucks. DMs and mentions wide open. If you want priority access and all sorts of other perks, go join the flock over at Subtext, link in the description below wherever you listen to or watch this show. This one came in from over there via Bud. With the departure of key seniors, which underclassmen do you see stepping up to fill leadership roles for the Ducks? Well, I think the leadership roles are pretty well established with the upperclassmen. You're going to have Jeff Bossa on defense, Dylan Gabriel on offense, and guys like Tez Johnson in the fold as well. But I think those are pretty well established in the, audible leadership department, or guys who everyone's looking up to, maybe even those are probably going to be the two guys that have the headset mics, which is new to college football this year. It'll be Bossa on defense most of the time, and Dylan Gabriel, of course, at quarterback for Oregon. But question got me thinking about underclassmen that'll take a step forward this year. So let's start with Kenyon Sadiq. I think this guy is poised for a big jump in production. Now, he didn't have a big year as a true freshman. Certainly, he was physically ready to play. He did play regularly for Oregon last year. On paper, he enters spring as the number 2 or the number 3 tight end. I'm not so sure he couldn't be number 2. And I think Patrick Herbert is real solid, has done some nice things in his Oregon career. Kenyon Sadiq's physical traits are just better. You can give him the football in ways that you can't with Herbert. He's a more dynamic and explosive athlete. He's bulked up a little bit. He had a build, frankly, similar to Trayshawn Holden last season, who's playing receiver, of course, and who, to be fair, I think could have a Juwan Johnson trajectory and maybe play tight end in the NFL, but that's a discussion perhaps for another day. Sadiq is someone who I think can make that jump. He's going into his true sophomore campaign, and I think that he has just got all the potential in the world to be a high-end pass catcher. And he's someone who I would absolutely be thrilled with as Oregon's tight end 1 in 2025. And this is Terrence Ferguson's last year. I'm pretty sure it's Patrick Herbert's last year of eligibility as well. And my perhaps not so hot take, long running here on the show for everydayers out there, has been that Kenyon Sadiq, by the end of the season, maybe sooner, will be Oregon's tight end 2. That doesn't mean you won't ever see Patrick Herbert. Oregon routinely had 3 tight end sets last year in packages and such that, Sadiq was sometimes a part of, or other times it was Casey Kelly, who's since transferred out of the program. So I think Sadiq is poised for a bigger role. Certainly he's not going to be tight end 1. I'm not going that flaming hot with my prediction there, but I do think he's someone who takes the next step forward and needs to. I mean, we saw those multiple tight end packages. If you're going to be that sort of guy, you got to be able to produce consistently. And, Sadiq really didn't get a chance to show that as a true freshman because, he's 4th on the depth chart, really, and he was a true freshman. But I think you've heard the coaches talk about him in a positive light a couple times when getting asked about questions for a reason. Not that they'd say anything negative per se, but he is on people's minds for a reason, and that's that he's a really, really talented dude who I think could take a big step forward this year. So that's one guy. Another guy is Devin Jackson. So Oregon's top 2 linebackers, I think, are set in stone. I think they're completely set. It is Jeff Bossa and Justin Jacobs. If those 2 guys are both healthy, those are your top 2 linebackers. I have no questions or doubts about that. Who the number 3 linebacker is, that's a little bit more up in the air. It's probably Devin Jackson. And that's someone who, again, like Kenyon Sadiq, is following a more traditional college football recruiting and career trajectory. He's going into his redshirt sophomore season. He was a 2022 recruit. And, Oregon had, of course, the changing of the guard there from Mario Cristobal to Dan Lanning. Jackson stayed on, didn't really play his first year. And then last year played a decent amount. Was one of the 5 most snapped linebackers for the Ducks. He was 5th, actually, last year. I won't be surprised if he's 3rd. Will not be surprised if he sees the 3rd most snaps at the linebacker position this year, and that if either Justin Jacobs or Jeff Bossa goes down with an injury, that Devin Jackson be the guy to step in and fill that role. He's going into his 3rd year of college football, and he's someone who has just got elite physical traits. I think there was an Oregon defensive coach, I forget which one, who recently said that he's the fastest guy on the team, which is pretty crazy because there are a lot of fast guys on the team. Now, that was part of what made him such an appealing recruit coming out of the Nebraska area, was his speed was just at another level. I don't think we've really seen that get unleashed yet, but if he's ready for it, if he understands the defense and all the little, not perks, all the little I don't even know what the word intricacies of playing the linebacker position. Like if he's the backup to Jeffrey Bassa, then he's the backup leader of the defense. Like if Bassa has to go out for a play, who are the signals coming into? Devin Jackson. Guess what he has to know? Not just his own assignment. He's got to know everybody else's assignment as well. He's got to be able to communicate that and get everybody set. Now, maybe it would go to Jacobs in that hypothetical, but that's something that I think Devin Jackson is going to have to do at some point is, Justin Jacobs battled injuries a lot last year. If he gets hurt again, Jackson's got to be ready to step up. But even if all three stay healthy, and let's hope they do, fingers crossed, but of course it's football, injuries are going to happen. Jackson is someone who I think will play a much bigger role. He was over 100 but under 200 snaps last year. I'd be surprised if he doesn't go over 200 because I think he's filling that Jamal Hill, Bryce Betcher role, as the number 3 linebacker for the Ducks this season, and I definitely expect him to take a step forward. And then another underclassman I'll go with is Amari Washington. And, Washington is among that group of defensive linemen. That'll be another big thing that I look for in this spring game on Saturday is which of those defensive linemen are at least holding their own or moving guys around. And when I say those defensive linemen, I mean outside of Jordan Birch, Jamari Caldwell, and other starters at edge like Amarian Winston, Mateo Uyunglele, Blake Purchase, and Tatum Tuioti. I know that those guys are going to play, but that other defensive tackle or nose guard position, is it Ben Roberts? Is it Keon Ware-Hudson? Is it Amari Washington, Johnny Bowens, Terrence Green? What does Aiden Braylon look like? The incoming 5-star true freshman, Elijah Rushing at the edge position. Like all those guys certainly have intriguing elements, but I think Washington's the guy who's kind of gotten the most buzz and, was a 4-star recruit, just like many of those guys, or all of those guys, pretty much at this point. I think that he, has got plenty of potential on that interior, but he's just got to show it. He's just got to show it. So those would be 3 underclassmen who played for the Ducks last year that I think take a step forward this year. And I look forward to seeing that play out in its first iteration in the spring game this Saturday. Good question. Another one came in here from Justin asking about the balance of portal and high school kids. So this is a really interesting question because in the transfer portal era, you can get a lot via the portal. And it's really easy for high school recruiting for fans mentally to take a back seat. But I did a little tabulation of a hypothetical 2 deep, just offense and defense for Oregon. So that's 44 players. Of the 44 players, I had, by my count, 19 guys on there who were transfers at one point in time that were not recruited to and committing to Oregon right out of high school and came in from another school at some point in their career. You got both quarterbacks, you got one running back. The only position I think that doesn't have any transfers on it is tight end. T. Ferg, 2021 recruit. Patrick Herbert, I think, was a 2020 recruit. And Kenyon Sadiq was 2023. That goes 3 deep without a transfer. That's pretty rare. You look at Oregon's receiving core. None of the top 4 guys were originally recruited to Oregon. Evan Stewart, transfer. Tez Johnson, transfer. Trayshawn Holden, Gary Bryant, both transfers. The guys behind him, Jurion Dickey, Kyler Casper, they were transfers. They were high school recruits. But having about, or around half of your roster, I don't think that's uncommon. It's certainly going to vary a little bit year by year, but I'd say on average, if you did a 3-year running total of number of players that are starters or key rotation players that come from the high school ranks versus the portal ranks, you're probably going to have about a 60-40 or 55-45 sort of split in favor of high school recruiting, mostly because of the trenches. If you just do a number of players. Now, if you're doing, most impactful guys, right, quarterback, receiver, number 1 running back, and that sort of stuff, that's going to lean very heavily towards the portal, though not entirely. But you start looking at the offensive line, Connerly high school recruit, Harper high school recruit, Poncho high school recruit, and then Bedford and Cornelius, both transfers. But you look at the depth chart there. You could have Jaquan McCroy to tackle, high school recruit. George Silva, transfer. Davey Uli, recruit, high school recruit. You could have Nishad Strother from East Carolina, transfer in there. So I think when you get into that, it's still more portal or still more high school dependent than people realize. It's just that it used to be more like 90-10. Now it's kind of shifted down to 60-40. But, 44 guys on the 2 deep, I think around 20. Around probably not many more than 20. I'd be surprised if it's ever over 50% transfers, but around 20 is where I'd kind of expect that ratio to be. And certainly it's going to be on full display in the spring game on Saturday. You're going to see plenty of guys that were recruited out of high school. You're going to see plenty of guys that were recruited out of the transfer portal. Such is the way of life. And I'm just really excited to watch some actual, somewhat, Oregon football. Love the questions. Here we are, Groundhog's Day. Well, not actually, but Dana Altman's squad has not added a transfer yet. And once again, the perfect guy is available, and he's considering Oregon. Before we get to that perfect option, let's talk about your perfect gambling option. That's FanDuel. That's right. It's playoff time in the NBA and the NHL. Baseball is in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 whether you win or lose. You don't even have to be right. You don't have to be right. You don't have to win the bet. You just have to do it. You get 150 in bonus bets. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all in an app that is safe, secure, and super easy to use. So, next thing you do, ask yourself this question. What are you waiting for? I don't know either. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. I have long spoken on this show about transfer targets for Oregon men's basketball. There are many out there. No doubt about it. No question. There have been. Some have come and gone. Tony Perkins would have been great. Second team All-Big Ten, goes to Missouri instead. Umar Ballo would have been great at center. He's going to Indiana instead. Well, here we are again with another high-end transfer target that is perfect for Oregon, and it's a name you may recognize, TJ Bamba. I would get way too excited if TJ Bamba comes to Oregon. The Ducks are reportedly in the top 6. We'll get to that in a moment. Why would I be so stoked? Twofold. Number one, 6'5", 205 pounds. So that fits the exact athletic profile of what Oregon is looking for to replace Jermaine Couisnard, who was about 6'4", 215, right? Not just some skinny guy who's got a little height. No, someone who's got a little beef to him, got a little meat. 10 points per game this past year at Villanova, and I'll touch on that in just a sec as well. Shot 37% from beyond the arc. Oh, man. This guy can score. This guy can score. Now, the year prior at Washington State, he averaged just under 16 points per game. And Bamba is one of those cases that those who are against the transfer portal would bring up and say, see, the grass isn't always greener, and there's no pushback here. He went to Villanova, which has been a national championship caliber program. They won 2 titles in 3 years with Jay Wright. Haven't had as much success since Jay Wright retired. Surprise, surprise. But Nova has still been a bigger basketball brand than Washington State. Well, Villanova did not sniff the NCAA tournament this year, and Washington State was playing in the round of 32. And if you hear that and go, see, that's why you need to stick it out when you have a good thing, I'm not going to argue against you. Washington State was a really good team, and they got to the round of 32. They lost to a good Iowa State team. Would they have been in an even better spot? Could they have had a better chance to make the second weekend if TJ Bamba had stayed? Yep, absolutely. But it's a mercenary world out there, and Bamba is in the transfer portal. So he would be utterly fantastic. Dana Altman is familiar with him. Oregon fans listening to or watching this, you're probably familiar with him. Why? Because he's, someone who killed the Ducks a couple of seasons ago. Guy is a fantastic player. Size, shooting, I think he defends pretty well too. Here's the tricky part. This is, I want to get excited about the possibility here, but I talked myself, not entirely, into Umar Ballo, because I looked at that and said, boy, he's from Mali, and Fali Dante is from Mali. Dana Altman has played against Ballo. Ballo's played against Dana Altman, saw the success he had here. Certainly those same elements are going to apply in TJ Bamba's recruitment, and maybe having Tony Stubblefield officially on staff full time is able to help Oregon push this one over the top. Here are the list of programs that Bamba is reportedly considering or down to in a top 6. Let me know if anything stands out here. And if you pick up what I'm putting down, props to you. Oregon, Florida, Memphis, Stanford, Kentucky, and Louisville. Which of those schools stands out the most to you? Think long and hard about why TJ Bamba would be considering Stanford. Oh, right, they just hired his former head coach, Kyle Smith. The guy from Washington State. Good coach. Good coach. One of you once upon a time sent in a mailbag question when we were going to get rid of Dana Altman. That was a good one. I never got there, but I understood why people were having those discussions. Anyway, Kyle Smith, very good basketball coach, had a great year with TJ Bamba. He is now the head coach at Stanford. So when you look around and try to find connections, like why would he go here? How could he go there? The portal is often about relationships. You have to formulate these relationships over time, whether you recruited him out of high school, whether you met him at a game you played, whether you've just crossed paths with him in the sports world or whatever. Hard to beat the relationship of having played for a guy and had your best career season. So he's going into his 5th and final year of eligibility, but his best year by far was 2 years ago with Kyle Smith. And here's the other part of this discussion. Stanford is trying to rebuild because Jared Haas didn't do a great job there and, had some decently talented players just underperform. But Kyle Smith, like most basketball coaches, what's he going to try to do? He's going to try to bring guys in via the portal. He's going to try to bring in players who he knows, who he's familiar with, who he is able to coach. Look at what he did, or look at what Mark Madsen did at Cal. Mark Madsen brought in a guy like Fardaz Amack, who'd played for him at Utah Valley. He brought in a guy in Jalen Cone, who played at NAU and had played against Utah Valley, I believe, once or twice in the past. How much success did Mark Madsen have? A lot. Cal was much better. Cal beat Oregon in one of their 2 meetings this year. Shouldn't have, but they did, down in Berkeley at Haas Pavilion. So I think that for the Ducks, this is someone you got to go after hard. There are still a lot of names. There's still a lot of options. The portals, you can go into the portal at any or during a certain window, but you can come out of it at any time. So I'm not worried that Oregon will never add someone out of the portal, and you'll be looking at Des Lindsey, the JUCO transfer, as the starting 2 next year, either him or Keyshawn Barthelemy. I'm not worried about that proposition. I do think as time goes on, the high-level guys are going to continue to get picked up. You can get other guys who are good, but are you going to get a guy the caliber or someone who has the potential of TJ Bamba? No, that's going to be a more difficult proposition. So I would love to see Oregon get Bamba. I think it's going to be tough. One thing that could work in their favor that I kind of just thought of as I'm recording the show is that Stanford and transfers go together like oil and water. They do not mix. And it is immensely difficult to get a transfer admitted to Stanford in both football and basketball. I think basketball has historically had a little bit more success in that department, but it is not a cakewalk to go and just play at Stanford if you want to transfer there via the portal. So we'll see if that works out. We'll see if that works out for the Cardinal and if they're able to, because I have no idea what the qualifications are or whether or not Bamba could, get in. Because remember, he'd be a student there. And this may shock you, but most college basketball, most people are not, myself included, are not smart enough to get into Stanford. And maybe they ease the requirements a bit, but that has not historically been the case. So that's the one thing that could work in Oregon's favor in that regard. And if Bamba wants to then come back out to the West Coast, let me read you that lineup of teams again. Louisville, Kentucky, Memphis, Florida, Oregon, Stanford. So 4 teams back east and 2 out west. That would be, I would literally be jumping for joy if Oregon were to get TJ Bamba. I want to close with this because I saw this headline going around. Oregon women's basketball coach Kelly Graves has reportedly put his house up for sale. Please don't look too much into this. Please do not say they're going to get rid of him. There is no other indication. There has been no indication from Coach Graves' camp. There's been no indication from the Oregon camp that they're going to move on. Even if you think that that's a move that should be made, do not look at this and think, wow, he's finally going to. His kids are grown up now. He's probably got a house. My parents, after I graduated high school in 2016, moved from Lake Oswego up to the Seattle area. Guess what? The house they got up there, lots smaller than the one they had when, kids were running around all the time. It turns out you don't need as much space when you don't have kids in the house. I know it's a crazy concept. I know that that's a crazy concept to throw out there, but I saw that headline. I kind of thought it was a non-headline of like, Until there are substantive discussions about moving on, do not expect Kelly Graves to move on just because he's selling his house. I do not see that being the catalyst that leads to him being removed as the Oregon women's basketball coach. Appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and go Ducks.